On this Tuesday, we've got Attorney General Lynn Fitch is our guest in the studio. We've been talking about human trafficking. Wanted to pivot now, General, and talk about insulin and some work you guys have been doing, specifically a lawsuit that I think you filed on the price of insulin and what's going on there. Tell us the story there.
I did. This is a very important lawsuit. It affects hundreds of thousands of people. And so we just filed it, and it's so key because insulin is required for people to live. I mean, it's outrageous, the cost of insulin. And George, just to give you, let me just put it in context. In Mississippi, we have the highest prevalence of diabetes in the United States. 13.6% of our population have diabetes. That's 400,000 plus people in our state alone. And if you think about it, diabetes causes blindness, kidney failure, amputation, and that's over 22% of the hospitalizations in our state are associated with diabetes. It's the seventh leading cause of death in the United States. So it is here, it is in our state, and just from the perspective of what does it cost us, the cost of diabetes in Mississippi is about $3.5 billion a year. That is outrageous. So 1 in every $4 are being spent annually to pay for insulin cost.
Right.
And so you've got at least 100,000 Mississippians right now that can't live tomorrow if they don't have insulin. I'll tell you, on the average, it's about $5,700 a year for a diabetic to be able to get their insulin. My daughter is a type 1 diabetic, and look, this painful chronic disease stepped in and affected my beautiful daughter. And so there's no going back. If you don't have insulin, you don't live. Yeah. And so it's really important to me because here's what I see happening across our state, across our country. Insulin is so expensive. People are bootlegging insulin. They're taking expired insulin. They're not taking it because they can't afford to purchase it. And look what happens to them. Yeah. We have so many deaths. We have so many side effects from that. I just can't stand by and let these precious individuals across our state not be stood up for and say, look, you got to make this right because I cannot live and I have to have my insulin.
So what's the premise of the lawsuits exactly?
So because insulin is so costly, and again, sitting in that context of how many people in Mississippi have it. Yeah. So it's manufactured by 3 big companies primarily. Yeah. So actually the cost of producing insulin has been decreasing over the last 15 years. But guess what? The cost of insulin has skyrocketed 1,000%. 1,000%. So think about if you're the person who needs to purchase it and it's that costly. But let me tell you what they're doing. And there's 3 pharmacy benefit managers as well in the 3 primary companies. But they increase this insulin lockstep. So if one increases it by a decimal, every one of them does too. So what do you have? You've got insulin pricing going on right here. I mean, this is a scheme. This is a conspiracy to have insulin costs continue to push together. Every time it goes up, they all do it. And it hurts who? The people that need the diabetes, that have diabetes who need the insulin to live, because there's no second choices. And so that's just unacceptable. That we just cannot allow that to happen. And so that's why I'm going after them, because I believe in doing the right thing. And these companies are not doing the right thing. Look, I'm very pro-business. I appreciate it. I'm a very big partner in the business arena for our state and our country. But if you're not acting in good faith, that's different. Our partnership is broken. Yeah. And so when I see this happening and I see these manufacturers raising this insulin cost all together and making it unaffordable for people, it's heartbreaking. And so it's time to stand up and say, we're not going to allow that.
There's been a lot of exposure of the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers, and that structure in the entire pharmaceutical supply chain aspect of the industry. Doesn't it just seem like that, I don't know, that the public's not being best served by that structure? Now, it's free market, free enterprise. You and I both agree that there are rights there, but it just appears there might be some collusion going on with these PBMs. And there's been a lot of exposure. There's been a lot of reporting on the entire PBM aspect, and it's very complex, as you know, very convoluted, how the flow of money works between the manufacturers, the PBMs, the drug distributors, and then the physicians and the consumers and the retailers. I mean, it's complicated the way all the money flows there. But the PBMs are kind of in the middle of all that and orchestrate all that. And so a lot of times the manufacturers or even the distributors will pass on savings that the PBMs tend to pocket and don't pass all the way through. And I think that's what causes a lot of this issue. Is there something, I guess, that just appears to be illegal? I mean, you're filing a lawsuit, so obviously you feel like that there's some illegal activity going on here. But is that kind of part of that? Do you see that? And I may be getting out into a tangent here.
You're absolutely correct, Gerard. I mean, they're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So I've named 3 PBMs in this as well because they're reaping all this benefits as the insulin prices are going up and the recipients are having to pay these outrageous costs.
Yeah.
PBMs are right in the middle. They're getting these rebates, these discounts, these coupons. So instead of really helping individuals who need their insulin, they're not. They're just getting their bottom line's getting bigger and healthier, and that's all going fine for the business. But it's affecting the people.
Yeah.
And so here's what you have: individuals who have to compromise their lives because it's so costly. And you're right; it's so layered down in there with these big corporations, with these PBMs, and the ultimate losers are the people who need the insulin.
Yeah, if there's some sort of conspiracy, collusion going on there, which it certainly looks like there is, that's a problem. That sort of exceeds the precepts of a free market and free competition, where, in fact, our antitrust laws, they're designed to prevent that specifically, especially when you consider the fact that these guys have patents on these drugs, and you know, they kind of leverage that to their benefit, and that's fine. They invented it, they invested in it, but when there's sort of downstream collusion going on, and maybe that's too strong a term in this to describe it in this context, but it just sure seems like that there's kind of a closed loop within the supply chain there that's hurting consumers.
Well, no, you're exactly right. This is an insulin pricing scheme going on.
Okay.
No question about it.
Well, that's a problem in my view.
It is. And again, like I said, when you see the insulin costs decreasing to produce, but yet you look at the increase at all 1,000%, that's unheard of. That's outrageous. That is a penalty for the users. And again, this isn't like something you can take and you just say, well, I'll take it next week or maybe next month.
Right.
No, this is... You die.
Yeah.
This is the lifeline. And so to make it so unaffordable, to put people in positions where they have to leverage their insulin, compromise their livelihoods, it's ridiculous. And the costs, think about it, if the monies could be saved, that these families, these individuals, wow, but they can't. They're spending $5,700 a year that we know of, just as an average, and they can't do anything because that is their lifeline to maintain their life.
It just sounds like that I guess the players in the supply chain have some sort of protections they really shouldn't have, and they're sort of keeping that kind of closed, and that's impacting the street price essentially to the consumer, and that's really antithetical to the concept of free enterprise and free market, in my view. So it needs to be addressed.
Agree. Look, like I said, when you see all 3 of them move at the same, decibel, you know there's collusion going on. So that's happening, and we're going to take them on because that's not acting in good faith.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, we'll be tracking that. What are some of the other priorities? You've got a couple of minutes left here, General. What are some of the other priorities for your office at this point?
Well, we've had so many great things going on, and we certainly have been working on human trafficking. We're working on the opioid abuse with a number of our partners as well. We've been very engaged through the pandemic with domestic violence, partnering there to help those individuals. We have a number of cases going on. Again, we're very much moving forward in our outreach because, again, knowledge is powerful, and our job is to share that because this office affects everybody across our state. And so the more they know about this office, how we can be protective, how we can help our victims, we're looking at it from every arena and hoping to provide people across our state with knowledge about their Attorney General's office.
Well, good. Keep the people safe and keep it going there, Attorney General. We thank you so much for joining us today. Attorney General Lynn Fitch has been our guest. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.
Appreciate it. And we shall take a break right here. We'll come back with much more talk on the JT Show. Don't forget at 12:05, Secretary of State Michael Watson.